I'm somebody that thinks a lot about their iPhone setup. And it doesn't matter what I'm doing, whether I'm filming, running my business, or just sat at my desk trying to focus. My iPhone is involved in almost all of it. Sometimes it needs to be a creative tool, other times it's just a communications device. But there are times where it's a research tool, or a way to stay on top of my business when I'm away from my Mac. But my iPhone has a lot to do, and a phone that can do a lot can very quickly become a phone that does too much, and it starts pulling your attention in directions you didn't ask for. I want to walk you through my iPhone setup, every app, every decision, and the thinking behind it, including the one that I nearly didn't bother with, but I now recommend to everyone. This video is sponsored by the like button, click it below to find out more. Let me take a step back and talk about the actual iPhone first. I'm on an iPhone 16 Pro, and for what I do, the Pro version was the right call because the camera system on this phone is fantastic. I take a lot of photos, trying to make them look professional as possible from an iPhone, and it's been a great journey learning about photography. And if you're interested about this journey, I've created a dedicated video about how to take incredible photos with your iPhone, and I'll leave it linked below. There isn't any way that I could not run a Pro iPhone. The standard 17 is a genuinely great phone, but the camera is why I always choose iPhone Pro. When I set up this phone, I started completely from scratch. I took everything off the home screen by default and I rebuilt it from the ground up. I'm somebody that doesn't like having multiple home screens. I used to have different layouts tied to different focus modes. So I'd have a work screen and a personal screen, and it would automatically switch depending on the context. But what I found is that it kept breaking my muscle memory. I'd reach for an app and it wouldn't be where I expected it because I was in the wrong focus context. The goal going into my rebuild was simple. One screen, meaning that everything that actually needs to be immediately accessible is visible. Everything else is going to live in the app library, where it's still searchable within a couple of seconds, but it's not competing for my attention every time that I unlock. Now, for most people, the first thing they notice about my home screen is the color, or the lack thereof it, because every icon is tinted the same muted grey tone. Now, this isn't a third-party app or a shortcuts workaround, it's a new feature in iOS 26 called Tinted mode. You long press the home screen, you go into Customize, select Tinted, and you get color and saturation sliders. Change the saturation and every icon on the screen, Apple's apps, third-party apps, widgets, all then takes on the same look. And the reason I've done this is that I spend most of my working day sat in front of my Mac. My iPhone is then sitting on the desk next to me, and I found that having a visually varied home screen with all the different colors, all the different distinct brand identities was making me want to pick up the phone more than I needed to. Now it all looks the same. There's nothing exciting to look at. I open it, I do what I came to do, and I put it back down. I always have a focus mode running, always. And the one that I choose to use is called Reduce Interruptions, and it arrived with Apple Intelligence in iOS 18.1. And it's unlike any focus mode Apple has shipped before, and the reason for that is worth explaining properly. iOS has had focus modes since 2021, and the problem with them all, do not disturb, work, personal, all of it, is that they require you to do all the setup work yourself. You have to manually choose which contacts can reach you, you have to manually choose which apps can send notifications through. You maintain those lists as your contacts and your apps change over time, and it is a significant amount of ongoing admin for something that's supposed to be reducing your cognitive load. But Reduce Interruptions works differently. Instead of you building and maintaining the rules, Apple Intelligence reads the content of your notifications in real time and decides for itself whether something actually needs your attention right now or whether it can wait till later. And it takes about a week to calibrate properly. The AI learns your patterns over time, when you're usually working, what tends to be important, and what app you open at different times of the day. And independent testing has found that it makes the right call about 85% of the time. And for something running entirely in the background without any input from me, that is a meaningful result. Right, let's get into the apps on my home screen. I've broken the home screen into two parts. The first part is the apps that I use most frequently and need to be able to get to quickly. These live directly on the home screen. And the second part is deliberately place widgets, but we'll get onto those later. First up is messages. I don't really need to explain this one. In the UK, everyone uses WhatsApp, but I still need to access two-factor SMS codes regularly. Next is photos, and I take a lot of photos, partly because I enjoy it, but partly because the 16 Pro camera system takes great photos if you know how. I shoot a lot of raw photos and then apply my iPhone presets to make them look even better. And I'm going to leave a link to those presets in the video description if you're interested. Plus I also have kids, so that means lots of photos get taken and viewed daily. Next is the camera app. I just use the default Apple camera app. For anything quick, capturing something on the go, piece of content, behind the scenes footage, the native camera app is the fastest option off the lock screen, and nothing else compares with it for speed when you need to shoot something quickly. Next is settings, and I know most people don't put settings on their home screen, but I'm in settings constantly, adjusting display options, switching app settings, or trying out new Apple updates. And for how often I'm actually in there, it earns its spot on the home screen. Next to that is Unify Protect. This is the app for my home security cameras. I run a full Unify setup at home, and Protect is how I quickly pull feeds and playback from my NVR in my house, but from anywhere. And if you're putting together a serious home network and want cameras that actually work with the infrastructure around them, then Unify is absolutely worth it. And fun fact, the company was started by the old Apple networking team back when Apple made those airport products. Clock. I use timers constantly when I'm working, giving a task a hard stop, timing something in the kitchen, or setting my alarm for the next day. Clock needs to be one tap away. Apple Notes. This is my quick capture layer. Notes is where a thought goes when it needs to leave my head immediately. It's the fastest path from thought to somewhere where it won't disappear. Apple Notes is more powerful than most people realise, but luckily you can find out exactly how by checking out my Apple Notes video, which details everything this app can do. Flash score. Look, I watch a lot of football. That's proper football, not that hand-egg American version. Flash score gives me live scores across every league that I follow with clean push notifications and minimal adverts. Apple Sports is arguably a better app, but it doesn't have the leagues and the sports coverage like Flash Score does, at least not yet. Gmail, and I know, an Apple creator using Gmail, but the reality is that my team run on Google Workspace. Apple Mail has never given me a compelling reason enough to move away from a system that I know works, so Gmail it is, and Gmail it will probably stay. Find My. This one earns its home screen spot for a specific reason, and that's AirTags. I have them on my keys and in my bag. And Find My on the home screen means that every time I'm standing at the front door for 5 minutes trying to work out where I left something, it means that I can find it quicker. Claude. This is my AI assistant of choice, and it gets its own spot on the home screen for a good reason. I use Claude on my iPhone primarily for two things. The first is research, when I'm developing a video idea and I want to get up to speed on something quickly. And the second is brainstorming. I find that talking through a video concept with Claude in a conversational way, asking it to challenge an angle or suggest a different structure or push back on an idea is one of the most useful parts of my pre-production process. But what I like about Claude specifically is that it feels like an assistant that's actually trying to be useful rather than trying to keep me engaged. And that's a difference because some AI products feel like they're optimized to keep you in the app and to keep using tokens. But Claude feels like it's optimized to give you a good answer and let you get on with things. And for how I use AI on my phone, that's exactly what I want from it. Notion. This is my center of everything. My video research lives here, my job, my scripts, my sponsorship tracking, my business admin. All of it is in Notion. And I've tried other things at various points, but I always come back. And on iPhone specifically, the app has become fast enough over the last couple of years that I actually use it properly on the go rather than waiting till I'm back at my desk on my Mac. 2 dedicated app widgets live on the home screen. First is the weather app. I'm in the UK, right? Checking the weather before leaving the house isn't paranoia, it's basic self-preservation. And the native Apple weather widget shows me exactly what I need. Current temperature, today's high and low, and whether it's going to rain, which it always does. That's the widget. I don't need anything else from it. The other widget is Google Calendar. It shows me my full day the moment I unlock the phone, every event, every time block I've laid out in every order. I also have recurring blocks in my calendar every day, and having that on my screen means it's a reminder of my daily tasks and if I'm late for a meeting. Events in my life also get scheduled pretty often, so being able to get them out of my head and into the diary is a must, or I will forget and I will be in trouble from my wife. And finally, top right of the home screen is the Smart Stack. If you don't know, Smart Stacks are rotating widgets that cycle through different app widgets based on the time of day and what Apple Intelligence thinks I'm most likely to want at that moment. So the first one is Apple Music. It shows what I was last listening to or services suggestions based on the time. Usually and always it's Taylor Swift. Shout out to my fellow Swifties. Apple Podcasts shows whichever episode I'm currently midway through. When I'm heading out to the car or going for a walk, I can pick up exactly where I left off without having to navigate to the podcast app. Apple Maps appears when I've got somewhere to be, which intelligently reads from my calendar. It shows the estimated travel to my next calendar event. One tap and the navigation is started on CarPlay. Fitness gives me a ring summary. I'm not obsessive about closing rings, but it is a passive reminder that I haven't really moved much today, and it just means that I should probably go out and touch some grass. And then finally, there's My BMW. This allows me to lock and unlock my car remotely. And that sounds like a gimmick right up until the moment you've left the car park and you're not sure whether you've locked the car when you left. I can also turn on the climate control before I get in, which in the British winter is less of a luxury and more of a coping mechanism. And the fuel level sits right there in the widget. So before I drive, I can see at a glance whether I need to factor in a petrol stop. It does those things very well, and I have no complaints about the BMW app, which, given how I feel about some other car connected software I've dealt with over the past years, that's pretty high praise. All right, let's talk about the dock. 4 apps live in the dock. Phone, obviously, my iPhone is still a phone. WhatsApp, my primary messaging app for anything that isn't iMessage. Clients, group chats, family and friends, even all those on iPhone, it all runs through WhatsApp. That is just the reality of communication in the UK. Chrome, and I know Safari is the correct Apple answer here, but Chrome on iOS syncs all my tabs, my history, and my passwords across every device seamlessly. So for research on the go, and I do a lot of research on the go, that cross-device continuity is worth more to me than the native integration with the rest of the iPhone. Finally, Apple Music. Music is on a lot, whether I'm working, I'm editing, or I'm driving, and it needs to be one tap away anywhere on my phone, and that's what the dock is for, and that is why it's there. And now finally, the lock screen. My lock screen is deliberately clean. There are no widgets. There are no complications cluttering up the screen. It's just the time, the date, and the wallpaper. I've seen lock screen setups that have stacked widgets and live activity indicators, the entire works. But I have found that a busier lock screen gives me more reasons to stay on my phone when I've picked it up without meaning to. Keeping it clean means there's less to look at and less reasons to linger. And that is a deliberate choice, and it's one that I would make again and one that I recommend to anyone. That's the whole phone setup. If you've got a home screen setup you're happy with, or you're still trying to figure it out, drop it in the comments because I genuinely love to see how other people approach this. Otherwise, see you in the next video. Thanks for subscribing. Catch you later. Peace.